Hi, my name is Victoria Zonko, and this is my ePortfolio video presentation for CNT 898. I currently live in Roland Park, Kansas, so right by the state line between Kansas and Missouri, and this is my 5th year teaching. I first started my teaching career at Bonner Springs High School in Bonner Springs, Kansas. After teaching 2 years at Bonner Springs High School, I did a long-term sub-position in the Olathe School District at Olathe North High School. And following that, I got a job in Lee Summit, Missouri at Lee Summit West High School. I'm currently still at Lee Summit West High School, pictured at the top right. And at Lee Summit West High School, I teach all 9th grade. I teach American history. And I also co-teach with a special education teacher for 2 hours out of the day, where I have between my 2 classes about 30 students who are on IEPs for various learning needs. Something interesting about myself is that I really enjoy traveling. The picture at the left side of the screen is myself this past summer in Budapest when I was there with a friend of mine. And I really like exploring new cultures and meeting new people. And something interesting about my school is that they allow for me to travel with students. So I'm actually taking 35 students between the ages of 16 and 17 this upcoming summer to Europe. And they will partake in a 3-day global leadership conference in Switzerland. And they're also going to do a Holocaust-centered tour through Poland, the Czech Republic, Germany, and then they will conclude with the Leadership Summit in Switzerland. I'm really excited to be able to share my passion for traveling with students and be able to show them new cultures and new parts of the world. This is the homepage of my master's portfolio. I really like how my master's portfolio turned out. I think it is aesthetically pleasing. I think it's very easy to navigate. There are many different sections. Somebody could click and learn more about me. They could learn about my teaching philosophy and where I developed my teaching philosophy and how I developed my teaching philosophy. And I'm going to actually focus on the areas of educational knowledge. I really like, and I'm very pleased with how this section turned out. In my areas of educational knowledge, I have all of my CAEP standards and artifact support, and they are very easy to access. The reader or the user can scroll through and they can choose which standard they would like to look at. When they first come upon the standard that they would like to look at, they can click on my artifacts, and those are hyperlinked, and they will open up in a new tab. And I also have my rationales for why I chose each artifact directly on the page so that they are easy to see and the reader can directly relate them to my artifacts. The specific area that I want to focus on in the specific segment is my CAEP standard 1.3. The standard is that candidates will show how they apply content and discipline-specific knowledge as reflected in state and national discipline-specific standards. And the reason I wanted to focus on this one is because at my school, our content that we are required to teach is very standards driven, and it's ever changing as the Missouri standards are ever changing as well. But what I really liked about choosing my artifacts for standard 1.3 was that it allows for me to show how I use creativity in my classroom in order to teach these standards. The first artifact that I chose was my artifact from CNT 803, which was a class over differentiation strategies. Before I show you the artifact, I would just like to talk a bit about CNT 803. I really enjoyed this class because I felt like I could walk away from the class with something tangible that I could directly pull back into my own classroom. Some of my other courses throughout CNT master's program were more theory-driven or research-driven, and I felt like CNT 803 really gave me that instructional side that I could use in my classroom and that I could take back to my students, and I didn't have to really mull on it a lot. I could implement it right away. The first artifact that I chose for CAEP 1.3 was actually another website that I created for CNT 803. This website is our differentiation strategies website, and what I liked about this assignment is it allowed for me to organize all the different differentiation strategies that I learned throughout the course of CNT 803. This is a great resource when I am actually planning my lessons and I want to remember what we did in this course, or I want to implement something different. So if you click on more, you can see several different strategies. And if you click within a particular strategy, such as graphic organizers, the user can then click through, they can learn what the strategy is, when they would be used. They can see an example lesson using that strategy as well. One assignment that I focused on for my differentiation strategies course was a lesson that used graphic organizers. And I chose to focus on this assignment and use it as an artifact because I felt like using graphic organizers is something people hear about a lot, but maybe not implement fully into their classrooms. So when choosing this assignment, it really made me think of how I could use this to help my learners in my classroom and how I could get a specific thinking process pushed across to the students. One of the Missouri social studies standards is for students to be able to explain connections between historical context and people's perspectives at history, or at different times in United States history. And what I have found with freshmen is they have a really hard time with making connections or explaining connections verbally, but using graphic organizers really helps them to visually see connections and how one event leads to another event. Here is an example of a lesson that used graphic organizers. This was part of our Red Scare unit, so within the time frame of the Cold War. And the instructional groups here that are differentiating are individuals, but this could be modified to be a group assignment. And students, prior to doing this graphic organizer, students do have to have the background knowledge. Now, some graphic organizers can be used in a different format where it helps them to gain that knowledge, but for this specific assignment, they have to have some prior knowledge. And in this assignment, students were given a list of terms in which they had to connect these terms and show how they fit in with the Red Scare. Below, you can see one of my students' examples. So you can see she has the Red Scare at the center. She has the second Red Scare branched off. She has the first Red Scare branched off to the other side. And from here, I can follow all of her branches, and I can see that she really does thoroughly understand everything that is going on within the context of the Red Scare. This assignment, she was a little bit lacking on visuals, but she made up for it in her content. She had a lot of content in her graphic organizer, and I could see that she actually understood each of the main concepts. If you look at Marshall Plan, you can see what's branched off of there, and that she was fully understanding how the Marshall Plan was working. You can look for Berlin Airlift and see the same thing. So this is a great way for students to show me what they know, but also be able to organize their thoughts. The next artifact that I chose for this particular assignment was from CNT 803 as well, which was differentiating curriculum and instruction. And I chose to pick an assignment from Module 1 called Questioning, Cubing, and Multiple Intelligence. And then I specifically focused on the questioning method because it hit the Missouri Social Studies standards. The standard that this hits the best is using an inquiry lens, develop compelling questions about the United States history post-1870 to determine helpful resources and consider multiple points of views represented in the resources. So in this assignment, students are given a list of questions, and you start with lower level questions and then eventually get to those higher order and those critical thinking questions. In this particular assignment, we were studying, the assignment came from a World War II unit, and students' goal is to determine if the bombing of Pearl Harbor and subsequent use of the atomic bomb was justified. So you can see that I have lower level questions here where students have to just have a basic amount of knowledge. They have to define certain terms. They have to look up very specific information. They have to give an example of when the United States has been the target of a civilian attack, when the United States has used biological warfare tactics. So these are very right there questions. And then students will move on to higher level thinking questions that they can work with pairs to kind of discuss and that can help them formulate discussions and ask further questions. Some of those questions you can see listed here, such as, in what cases, if any, would chemical warfare be justifiable to use? And if you believe that it's never okay, you have to explain why. My biggest takeaway from compiling all of my artifacts and dividing them up among the standards, a common theme and big idea that I saw throughout all of my artifacts was student choice and student voice. And that's allowing for students to have a platform to express what they know, giving them multiple options to show what they know, and allowing for them to just express their voice, whether it's right or wrong. I also learned that students need their thinking processes guided. As educators, we can't assume that students know how to think critically, and we can't assume that students know the right steps in order to gain the answers or the responses that we would like for them to have. And so using things like graphic organizers and showing them how to guide their thinking process really will help develop the whole learner. The next steps in my professional career are going to be getting my 45 graduate hours on top of my master's, because that will bump me again on the pay scale. Luckily, my district offers a plethora of graduate courses each semester that we can take through the district for a very minimal cost, so I'm looking forward to being able to do that. Next on my plate would be hopefully adding an advanced studies course or two to my preps for next year. I would like to teach advanced studies world history. And then my ultimate goal would be to teach at our Summit Technology Academy in their International Studies program and working with that international model. I think that this course has really prepared me because before I had a very limited knowledge base on how education works as a whole. And this course really taught me that each part of education, whether it be research or curriculum or instruction, each acts like a small piece to a bigger picture. And it helped me to develop more tools for my teaching toolkit, and it allowed me to have a much broader